Dear brothers, sisters, and all loving people of the decolonial summer school of UCT, I want to express my gratitude for enabling me to speak to you. A special thanks goes out to my dear sister Elelwani Ramagonda for the work she has been doing and the relationship we have cultivated in struggle. Coming May, I will visit UCT to present my new book titled Decolonizing the Mind, a guide to decolonial theory and practice. I've been working on it for the last 12 years, and I tried to tackle this basic question. Is it possible to develop a comprehensive, coherent, and integral framework for decolonial theory and practice? The European Enlightenment has produced two such frameworks, liberalism and Marxism. A comprehensive, coherent, and integral theoretical framework has the following characteristics. It is comprehensive because it has produced concepts of how to look at the most important dimensions of society. A view of world history, economic relations, social relations, including relations with nature, political systems, culture, philosophy. There are other important aspects of the society, but these dimensions are essential to make a framework comprehensive. And it also includes language, which I'll talk about in a minute. It is coherent because its concepts in the different branches and disciplines of knowledge don't contradict each other. They are consistent and logical. And the framework is integral because the concepts of the different dimensions are not just lumped together, but they are related to each other from a basic concept. Now, the European Enlightenment has produced two such frameworks, liberalism, with its basic concept of individual freedom, and Marxism, with the basic concept of class and class struggle. And on the basis of these basic concepts, the different theoretical frameworks have developed political theory, social theory, economic theory, etc. For me, in decolonial theory, the basic concept is mental slavery and decolonizing the mind, and the concept of civilization. Now, it took liberalism and Marxism 100 years to develop into a comprehensive, coherent, and integral framework. John Locke, one of the founders of liberalism, published his political ideas on government in 1689, more than 330 years ago, and it's still relevant there. Adam Smith, the founder of economic theory of liberalism, published his inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations in 1776, almost a century later. The French Revolution of 1798, which is 230 years ago, articulated basic socialist idea. The Communist Manifesto, a founding document of the socialist movement, was published in 1848. Das Kapital by Marx, the founder of Marxism, was published in 1867, more than 550 years ago. So decolonial theory as a framework is just a few decades old, and there's still a lot of work to be done to develop into a comprehensive, coherent, and integral framework. And many people are contributing to this, many of our friends. And what I've tried to do is build a framework based on the concept of decolonizing the mind. Other might build decolonial framework based on other concepts. So I'll put out a methodology which I use and apply to language and knowledge. In my view, this methodology consists of three dimensions. One is a critique of the Western colonization of the mind and thus of Western and Eurocentric knowledge production. You critique the knowledge production. Whatever theme you take, even if it's language, you look at how ideas articulated within the Eurocentrism about this topic. And then you explain what you think of those ideas. And if you think they are wrong, you have to put out why. And then you develop alternative concepts, alternative knowledge, and you take into account the contributions of other civilizations. So if we talk about economic theory and you criticize Marxist economic theory or liberal economic theory, then you have the obligation to put forward a alternative. And if you do that, you look also on what non-Western civilizations have produced. What did the Chinese, Africans, the indigenous civilizations in, in Latin America produced? And that is a pluriversal knowledge. You don't look at one specific civilization, in this case, the Western. And then the third dimension is to translate this new knowledge into practical steps of how to build a new world civilization in viable policies. Now, what I've done in this book, in 13 chapters and 600 pages, I dealt with the mechanisms of the colonizing of the mind, and look in the how in mathematics, natural sciences, social, political, economic, and cultural theory, racism, world history, and the concept of civilization. I discussed it. I tried to develop this framework. You can download the table of contents and the introductory chapters from my website, www.sandewhira.com. And I will show how I apply this methodology in dealing with language and knowledge. So, in my view, I look at the relationship between language and knowledge through two perspectives. One is the relationship between language and the structure of knowledge. What is the relationship between linguistics and structure of knowledge? And the second is, what is the relation between knowledge and the structure of language? So let's take the first one. The structure of knowledge, as I explained in my framework, is based on how I define knowledge. As in general, I define knowledge as the collection of insights and understanding about the natural and social world as expressed in concepts that describe and explain certain aspects of the social and natural world. And central to this definition is the notion of concept. So a concept is an idea that describes and explains certain aspects of the world. So knowledge is contained in concept. Concept is the basic unit of knowledge. So let's look at the concept in detail. I explain the concepts, the basic unit of knowledge, consists of 5 elements. And the first is terminology. This is linguistics. A term is a linguistic expression of a concept. For example, take the concept of the discovery of the discovery of the Americas, right? So if there is a discussion on the knowledge, the discovery of America, then the linguistics of it is very important, because in the linguistics is contained how you structure the knowledge. Only the term, the Americas, is a colonial term. You know, and the indigenous people of Bolivia prefer Abya as the term for the Americas. So by using the discovery of Americas, you already have colonized knowledge through linguistics, through the terminology you use. And the second element of a concept is observation. So an observation is a collection of facts about the object of your research. You can dispute what a fact is, but basically it means a gathering of information. Now, when you gather the information, you present it. Not you present it also in linguistics. In the stories you're telling, uh, uses in this case, for example, you use the term discovery to explain a concept, which is that the journey of Columbus was not a journey that opened genocide, but was a journey that opened the idea to discovery, to science, and where linguistics expresses uh, uh, the analysis, in fact the facts, uh, and the facts of discovery and the facts of genocide are different terms. Um, so you have this second element, and then the third element is analysis. And analysis, where the observations are the descriptive part of a concept, the analysis is the explanatory part of it. It explains reality in order to understand it. It offers a framing and a storyline with a certain logic that makes you understand why it is as it is. You see, and that is in terms of analysis, the linguistics expresses the analysis. The discovery is uh, an analysis of all the facts put together about the journey of Columbus. Genocide is another concept that puts other aspects of the voyage of Columbus. And in order to understand this, what this voyage meant in opening up colonialism, the term of genocide contained in the analysis is different than the one of discovery. So, and the fourth element is theory. A concept is related to other concept and is brought together in a bigger picture to understand natural and social reality. And all these aspects of knowledge contained in content in a concept is always expressed in terminology, and the concept of discovery is linked to the theory of modernity, where all the other aspects of science, the development of science and philosophy and economics, etc., the term modernity is a colonial term. It's a colonial term that puts in itself the idea that world history, human history, has gone from low to high. And the Western society is the apex. But if you regard Western civilization as a deep nadir as of human history, of barbarism, then the idea of where we are now in world history contains in theoretical concepts of the rise of a new decolonial world civilization. All these things, languages expresses it. And the fifth element of a concept is ethics, where in Eurocentric knowledge production, everything is about true or false, and ethics, right or wrong, is kept out of science. Within the DTM, decolonizing the mind framework, ethics is part of knowledge. It's not only about true or false, but also about good and bad. Value judgment is what the Western philosophers call ethics. And objectivity requires that you separate it. Where in the DTM, it is we see that it is hidden, it is not gone, and that's why we acknowledge that it is hidden. Now, let me go more specifically into this. These are general observations about knowledge and the structure of knowledge, and how language, how that structure of knowledge is expressed in language. Now, you could look at the structure of language and how it relates to concept. And then you get another view of the relationship. Let me give you one example. I'll give you two examples, in fact. In chapter 10 on decolonizing social theory, I discussed gender and how to decolonize gender. And Oyerenke Oyewumi explains in her book, The Invention of Women, that in Yoruba language, most names and all pronouns are ungendered. So there are no single words in Yoruba for gendered kinship categories as son, daughter, brother, sister. Now, imagine if a language doesn't have specific terms for male and female, what does this tell you about how social relations should be conceptualized? Because if in gender theory, you have a notion that gender is universal, and now it turns out that in some language there are not even words for Western concepts of gender. That means that in the structure of language, the way you conceptualize knowledge is totally different. It puts feminist theory upside down by just acknowledging that gender in the linguistics, makes you think about how knowledge should be and could not be conceptualized. So looking at how language is structured and then how those structures impacts the thinking about concept, about knowledge, that's important. That's a really important thing in describing relation between knowledge and linguistics. And I'll give you another example. In chapter 5 on logic and epistemology, I discussed the three laws of logic in Aristotle. And one of the three laws is the law of the excluded middle. It says, if A equals A, it cannot equal non-A. So everything is and must be either one of the two mutually exclusive things. For example, a thing cannot be Columbus and a dog. It is either Columbus or a dog. But there are problems with this law of Aristotle. The Indian Jain philosophy, argues that there are 7 values of how do you look at propositions. And now, but the interesting thing is when I was looking into it, that there is a linguistic element of it in the language of the Akoli people of southern Sudan. The Akoli, maybe I pronounce it wrong, language has a peculiar way of repeating an adjective in a manner that seems to suggest a third possible alternative between a statement and its negation. For example, and I might be bad at pronouncing this, it is hot. In the Akoli language, is pinai liet. It is not hot, pinai pe liet. And it is rather hot, pinai liet liet. And the English word rather doesn't capture the Akoli idea of liet liet, which is somewhere between it is hot and it is not hot. So Pini liet liet quite unambiguously asserts that it's neither hot nor not hot. And the law of excluded middle rules out just this possibility. So in the structure of language, you see it impacts how you look at logic. So now what I did is I didn't discuss language and knowledge as such in the book, but I apply with these examples the methodology of DTM to linguistics. And in the same way as I've used this methodology to decolonize mathematics, economics, etc. I could go on and on, but I'm very happy to be able to address you and put out some propositions that might be of interest for you. And I'm looking forward to my visit to UCT and engage in discussion and debates in South Africa on decolonizing the mind, and hope to learn from your contribution in this process. Thank you very much.